Interesting in a good way. Yes. Once there lived a fat little king, and his wife the queen made him pickle chiffon pie every single day. But everybody has problems. The king's daughter, the princess, was beautiful. In fact, so beautiful, the princess would come and go every day, giving her flowers and gifts. And to be polite, she'd ask them to stay for dinner, and that meant less pickle chiffon pie for the king. That was his problem. One day, the king decided his daughter needed to get married, so there'd be more pie for himself. He got the 3 nicest princes in the neighborhood and told them they would be put to the test, and whoever won could marry the princess. The first prince, Prince Musclebone, was very strong and brave. The second prince, Prince Well-Read, was very smart, could count to 684, and read books 3 inches thick. The third prince, Prince Bernard, wasn't very smart or strong or brave, but the princess liked him best of all. The king told the princes that they would be sent into a huge forest for 3 days, and whoever brought back the most unusual, the most marvelous thing in the whole forest, could marry the princess. Prince Musclebone thought for sure he would win since he was the strongest and bravest. At first, he didn't really see much, and then he did. He saw a green and blue dragon with 3 heads roasting marshmallows. There's something we don't see every day, he thought, but I have 2 more days and should be completely normal. On the second day, he found a 4-wheeled Dindoozle smoking a pipe. But he decided here one day, and should probably wait. On the third day, he found it, the most wonderful thing in the whole forest. He found a lion wearing roller skates while juggling 6 cans of root beer soup. He immediately grabbed the lion by the tail and started walking back to the forest. Meanwhile, Prince Well-Read was searching too. On his first day, he spied a witch who could turn people into frogs with one hand behind her back and her eyes shut. On his second day, he found a 16-footed kazoo wearing 1 different kind of shoe on each foot. But he decided here one more day and should look a bit more. On the third day, he found it, the most wonderful thing in the whole forest. He found a giant with a green beard playing chopsticks on 2 different pianos. He talked the giant into going back to the castle with him. Now, let's not forget about Prince Bernard. He was searching too. On his first day, he found an ogre that was so ugly, he scared the leaves right off the trees. He thought that he might frighten the princess. On his second day, he found a teeny tiny house filled with mice painting the most wonderful pictures ever. He couldn't bear to interrupt them. On the third day, he found the most wonderful thing in the whole forest. He found a 3-nosed snozzle with fuzzy little ears and an orange polka dot necktie. And best of all, he was making pickle chiffon pie. With that, Bernard immediately grabbed him by the necktie and started walking back to the castle. It was hard work pulling him through the forest, but he didn't mind since he knew he would win. Then he noticed the tears running down the snozzle's cheeks. The snozzle begged him to save his children. Then Bernard sat on a log and thought for a while. He thought of his love for his princess, and he thought of the snozzle's love for his children. Then he decided to let the snozzle go. The snozzle scampered off to his children. Sadly, Bernard started walking back to the castle, empty-handed, for his 3 days were up. The next day, all 3 princes reported to the castle. The king was delighted with Musclebone's lion, and he clapped and cheered when Well-Read's giant played chopsticks. Then the king turned to Bernard. "What have you brought back for us?" he said. "Nothing, your majesty," he said sadly. He told him about the ogre that might frighten the princess, and the 3 mice and the little mice who couldn't bear to interrupt. And he told about the 3-nosed snozzle who couldn't bear to lose children. Then the castle was silent. Nobody spoke a word. Then the king said in a loud voice, "Bernard, you have been chosen to marry. You have won the right to marry my daughter, the princess." "But how?" Bernard said. "You brought back a story of love, kindness, and consideration for others. Truly, that is the most wonderful thing of all." At the wedding, Musclebone's lion entertained the guests, while Well-Read's giant played the wedding march. Guess who sent the biggest pickle chiffon pie anyone has ever seen